Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Top of Mind Florida. Michael Williams here.
And I'm Brian Crowley.
And our guest, Representative Toby Overdorf, Republican, Treasure Coast Republican. And we appreciate you being with us in this new year. We hope you and your family had a great Christmas and a great new year.
Fantastic Christmas, first one with a new grandson, and so things are looking up.
Good for you. Now you get to unwrap all your legislative presents.
There we go.
As is going on in the Florida legislature, even as we speak. Take it away, Brian.
Well, I understand you want to ban traffic from I-95.
Well, if you start the interview off that way, yes, most certainly. Yeah. Typically, it's a 40-minute drive, and it was an hour and 20 today. So,
well, we appreciate you being here for this.
Most certainly.
So one of the big issues being talked about is eliminating property taxes. What do you have to say about that?
Well, as the chairman of the Property Tax Committee and in charge of that entire committee, I'm well-versed on it. It's something that obviously is top of mind for the Florida legislature, and it is something also that's top of mind for many of our voters and constituents as well. I don't suspect that we are going to remove all property taxes, and that's not something that's on the table from the Florida House. And our proposals vary from a removal of homesteaded property taxes to removal of homesteaded property taxes for just 65 and older, and a variety of other proposals that include everything from increasing portability, which recognizes your investment, to increasing a homestead exemption on a percentage basis rather than a dollar for dollar basis. What was important to us a lot as we worked through the process was making sure that whatever we do is equally applicable to Miami-Dade County as it is in Gadsden County or Liberty County. And I think that's something that the House recognizes more so than any of the other proposals we've seen out there. Some proposals have come in from the Senate. A former Palm Beach County commissioner has done some proposals there, but we're really waiting to see what they have to say, and our partners in the Senate. And the governor has said he wants a full elimination, and he said his proposal is doing this and his proposal is doing that. We're well over 330 days since he made that announcement, and we haven't seen any proposals yet in the House.
You're echoing Danny Perez, the House Speaker, who said the same thing. And not surprisingly, what you are telling our audience is tracking with what Speaker Perez wants. Your polite but not too subtle messages: if you have a plan, Governor, let's see it.
Most certainly. And we have tried to be partners, and we're trying to do that. We're trying to work through a conservative agenda, certainly, but also an agenda that looks at how this property tax issue affects everybody in the state of Florida. And therefore, we're listening. But at the same time, we'd like to work with all branches. Now, if you recall, what we're doing right now is a constitutional amendment. That constitutional amendment has to be approved by a supermajority of the House, a supermajority of the Senate, and then it goes to the Supreme Court. We don't need the governor's approval to do any of this. However, we are asking for him to be a partner with us in working on this.
Well, you also need 60% of the voters.
We do need that. That is a critical item. You certainly brought that forward.
Although you make it 98% who talks about reducing property taxes.
It's it's interesting you bring that up, because there are some proposals that the voters recognize the value of local government, the value of what is coming in on property taxes. On the reverse side of that, the property tax swell has certainly overwhelmed a lot of folks here, where we've seen the overall collection on property taxes. It'll hit $60 billion this year just for property taxes statewide. That's a tremendous number, considering we run the state this last year on $112 billion, the entire state. So that's something that I look at this, and that $60 billion only takes in about 35% of overall local budgets. So now we're looking at our local budgets totaling about $180 to $190 billion. That's a lot of money.
Is there a willingness to look at how much property taxes go to the sheriffs?
Right now, our proposals look at keeping law enforcement at the same levels of 25-26 budget or 26-27 budget, whichever the local government chooses. And as far as the sheriff's budgets, I mean, we want to make sure that we ensure that the folks within these various municipalities are safe. Now, that being said, municipalities also make choices as to what kind of police protection they want. In our 411 municipalities we have across the state, many of them have their own boutique law enforcement. And I'm not talking about the city of West Palm Beach, and I'm certainly not talking about others. However, there are smaller municipalities that have 8 or 10 officers. Is that something that's really needed in those areas, or could the sheriff's department in that county overtake that area?
What about the argument that the state's sticking its nose in local municipalities and counties' choices, and a very heavy critique that the math will not add up, that eventually will end up gutting local services, police, fire, road building, you name it. And by the way, next week we'll have one of your opposites, Democratic State Senator Lori Berman, here for the other side of that. But how do you answer that very harsh and concerning critique from those who say, bad idea?
Well, I would say that history repeats itself, and I would look at the same exact quotes that came out in 2008 when we went through the process at that point in time and looking at the homestead exemptions
Mhm.
and increasing the exemptions at that time. They said this is going to be the ruin of local government. We will not be able to exist. I think local government's done just fine. And in fact, new municipalities have been established since that time that also have the property taxes that are their main source of income.
Realistically, what do you think is going to happen?
I would suggest that we're probably going to see some type of a lowering of property taxes, whether it be through an exemption
Mhm.
or whether it be through one of the proposals. I know that the 65 and older proposal is polling very well at the moment. We also have a proposal on that gives a overall exemption for insurance and keeping your insurance policy. So I think there are some that are certainly rising to the top. I don't suspect we will have just one proposal on the amendment, or so to be on the ballot next year.
Mm.
I propose that we will probably have at least two that are going to be on the ballot next year, and hopefully one, if not both, will pass. And I will certainly be working to make sure that both of them actually pass.
Over 20% of the population of Florida is senior citizens, 65 and older. In this year, baby boomers start turning 80. With the very large senior population we have in the state, baby boomers are going to start requiring, as they get into their 80s and 90s, health care. There will probably be a huge uptick in baby boomer poverty because their 401ks will run out. Is that something the Florida legislature should be looking at now?
You raised some great points that there's a crossover between the federal and the state responsibilities, and in many cases, many of the items that you brought up are federal responsibilities when you look at Medicare or Social Security and the solvency of Social Security. The state has taken the responsibility of, if in fact these seniors are coming on board, let's reduce their burdens. And reducing the burden in this particular case, potentially by property tax, is one of those items where, in many of the cases that you brought up, their house is paid for. Their living is paid for. However, as the governor likes to say, they're still renting their property from the government. The other item is that with potentially with portability, they could downsize. Right now, many of these seniors are trapped in their homes and they don't want to move somewhere else because they're going to have an exorbitant property tax. If we were able to increase the portability side to it, they could essentially gain the windfall from selling a larger home, move to a smaller home, take their entire portability amount with them, and pay no property taxes whatsoever, regardless of what happens on the 65 or older proposal.
Talk about elder care. You talked about it last time. That's another big piece of what Brian's speaking about, the affordability. And then when you do need care,
Mhm.
and I know this firsthand from loved ones who have and do elder care concerns. You brought that up on your last visit here.
I think it's something that we look a lot at fraud. Number one is a major issue, and unfortunately, there's a lot more electronic fraud that is
Mhm.
happening where seniors may think that they're getting one thing, and all of a sudden it's a bait and switch, and they're getting something else. We are dealing also with whether it be transportation
Mhm.
to have care.
Mhm.
That's another, especially in many of our rural areas now. We're not seeing the same level of transportation that may be out there to get people to care. And finally, the availability of hospitals. Now, we're certainly seeing a greater availability. We're seeing more urgent care opening up. We're seeing hospitals open up. But we're also seeing a fair amount of attention now based on the senior living associations and the senior living facilities that, frankly, I've seen pop up all over the place now. And it's a wide variety of income levels associated with it, too. So I think it's something that we're aware of, but again, I go back to it's a balance between the state and the federal side.
What should Florida be doing about AI?
Great question. I think that Florida needs to be on the forefront of AI. And I think it's another area that the Florida legislature diverges from the governor's wishes. The governor appears to be saying that he wants to have major guardrails on it, and I think this is something that crosses state lines, and this is should be a federal policy. So I'm so in support of what the Trump administration is looking at for the AI policies. I think that Florida can utilize this to really continue to jump ahead from their educational policies, from overall business policies, and AI should be a part of that. I think that we're going to see data centers. Florida is very well tuned to having data centers throughout our state. They are a low impact area that brings in a huge amount of property tax and other income to a local area. And I think it's something that we need to be looking at to have these data centers strategically set around our state along current black fiber lines and along current high tension power lines.
Some would argue about low impact. There's one proposed, I think, out western Palm Beach County, and there's the NIMBY, not my backyard. There's already a lot of opposition, a lot of concern. You just touched about power needs, how you're going to meet all of that. So the low impact, some people are going to take issue with that.
Well, certainly, and some people would take low impact with a lot of the warehouses and the distribution centers that we've seen throughout our state. Yet we're also seeing the positive side of that, which is a continued source of jobs and high tech jobs, and also the ability then to bring that income to that local government area. As far as the low impact side to it, it certainly isn't an area we're going to see a huge amount of trucks going in and out of every single day. And as far as the power issue, that is an area that I'm really focused on. And frankly, working with Congressman Donalds and working with others to see if there can't be additional ways to generate power. One of those being the small modular nuclear, that is something that really should be brought into the United States all over the place. Now, small mod nuclear is something that could, in fact, generate enough power to say power the entire Martin County or the city of West Palm Beach with one small reactor. Now you might say, "Oh my gosh, what about bringing a nuclear reactor in here? This is really scary." We've had nuclear reactors on naval ships for over 50 years. Have you heard of anyone having a major issue associated with a nuclear reactor on a naval ship? No, we haven't. These are things that we should be able to bring in to utilize for our citizens, and this technology is well proven throughout our naval service. And so I think it's something that we need to be looking at as a way to generate. You look at solar fields and the thousands of acres that the solar fields take, you could compact the energy generation just into a small area associated with a small mod nuclear rather than thousands of acres for solar.
You said the word Byron Donalds, which helps us to start segueing both to it's political season here. Of course, running for governor, backed by President Trump, a big war chest. You're a big backer of his.
Yes, sir.
Talk about, we want to get to that, a little bit of talk about redistricting as well, but talk first about the lay of the land politically as we look this year.
Well, as we've seen, the Republican advantage for voters has increased, and more so than ever before. I think we're well over a million, approaching a 1.3 million now, if I recall correctly, as far as a voter advantage. So Florida is a squarely red state. I suspect that whoever wins the Republican nomination will likely be our next governor. And right now, that is looking as though Byron Donalds will be that person. As far as an overall change, there I think there's going to be a little bit of a pullback from the amount of Florida House representatives and Florida Senate representatives from a supermajority. That we may retain the supermajority, we may not, but there's a little bit of pullback from that, and so I think that there might be some changes there. But we had unprecedented numbers under Speaker Perez right now as far as the amount of House members. So it'll be hard. It'll be hard for Speaker Designate Garrison to continue to have those numbers. That being said, I think that Florida is squarely a Republican state and will remain so for the preeminent future.
How will Floridians look back on the governorship of Ron DeSantis?
So I think the governor has. I take nothing away from him. I think he led Florida through some very tough times, and I don't think that Governor Scott actually gets enough credit for the things that he did. He had some very tough decisions, very unpopular decisions that allowed for the future of Florida to take place. Ron DeSantis then came in and took a lot of those decisions and was able to capitalize upon them. And I'm not saying that he wouldn't have been able to do some of the things without Governor Scott, but that being said, I think he led us through some very tough times. brought us forward and brought the preeminence forward, combined with the work of so many Republicans and the good work there, that brought us to where we are now as far as this voter advantage. Uh, Senator Joe Gruters, our current CFO, Blaise Ngolia, they were both former chairmen of the Republican Party and laid the groundwork for a lot of what's happening out there right now as well. So I think Governor DeSantis will be remembered as one of the strongest governors we've ever had in the state of Florida. And I hope that his legacy will not be of one of remembering long sessions and things like that, but instead will be remembered of some of the good work and the good conservative work that he did.
What about the critique that he also made culture wars a fixture in Florida politics and drove us farther apart instead of bringing us closer together as Floridians?
I think that there were some things that he had to put a line in the sand for,
Like
whether it
like?
be specifically Florida became a hot point for men and women's bathrooms. We've talked about that, and this is something that has now become a national focus where this is something we shouldn't have, frankly. We looked a lot at a variety of DEI and looking also at the investments that were being made from bank level and making sure that we're taking those out. And people are judged on their credit score. People are judged there, but they aren't judged necessarily on their decision of driving a diesel truck or an electric car. And those are some things that were happening within our banking world. So I'm excited for what he has laid as far as from his agenda, and I look forward to the next governor as well.
Well, you recently had a visit with your grandson, 9 months old, as I recall. And maybe he's too young for you to have asked this question.
You think?
But
he's very
at
advanced.
some point,
Yes,
you're
yes.
going to have to, especially if you succeed in this, you're going to have to take responsibility for bringing back cursive.
Oh, I hope so. I hope I have that conversation.
You have legislation
Yes, sir.
to bring back cursive to elementary schools.
Yes. So
You've not seen my cursive handwriting, apparently.
Well, this was prompted by some friends of mine in the business industry, some in real estate, some in banking, where they were having young people come in and they couldn't sign their name. They had no way to actually have their signature.
Mhm.
And I said, what do you mean? So I looked into it and I realized that there is no requirement for proficiency for cursive writing in any school in the state of Florida. Now, it was cursive writing was taken out of the schools several years ago. Governor DeSantis, in one of his executive orders, brought it back. And I say that in air quotes because there was no requirement for proficiency. There was no requirement for actual knowledge of how to write everything. But the teacher could say, hey, this is cursive writing. So what we're doing is requiring that there is a level of proficiency by the time that they get done with fifth grade.
Mhm.
And then from there, we move forward. So
Before we talk a little more about your agenda, although you're plenty busy with property taxes alone, redistricting, there's been a debate. How far might there be a push? The House Speaker had set up his own committee or commission to look at it. Where are we going to end up with redistricting push this year?
Well, again, the Florida House leads the way, and the Florida House is the only one that has put together a committee to look at redistricting. And so we're studying it. We're waiting for the case from Louisiana to go through fruition and to take a good look there. But we have to get ahead of this because if you recall, if we wait until the summer on these issues, if we wait until later on, as the governor has suggested, potentially we're going to be in a position where we're having to have all kinds of special elections, or we're in a position where we have to rush everything because we have to get to the primary. The primary is in August. We have overseas ballots going out real shortly after session, and that's why we have an early session this time around, is because we recognize that side of the early voting.
Or we could have left redistricting alone after 2020, but there's a fight for advantage from Texas to Florida to ensure Republicans hold on to Congress.
Well, and that's also reflected in other states and in Illinois as well as in California that the Democrats are countering that as well.
What's on your agenda outside of property taxes and cursive writing? Brian's got good cursive.
Right on it.
What else? He is. He's on top of everything.
Nursing,
He gave me a big education on Two Egg, Florida. Have you been there?
I have not.
Okay.
No.
See,
Yeah.
I wasn't recently in another episode. We won't go there today.
Gotcha.
What else is on your agenda?
Working on a bill on nursing right now, and that nursing side is right now in the state of Florida. We're looking at a deficit in the next 10 years of about 35,000 nurses.
Wow.
And Florida, it ranks dead last in passing the national certification test. So, well, actually, I think Island of Samoa is behind us. But beside that, Florida's dead last. That we are now working on trying to modify that and holding some of the schools accountable to make sure that, in fact, we're passing this. Now, I'm not talking about University of Florida. I'm not talking about Kaiser University or others. They do a great job. Indian River State College is one of the highest in the entire country as far as passage rates. So many of these we're not talking about. But we are talking about many schools that are taking advantage of young students that are coming out, we're trying to find a profession. They shell out thousands of dollars and they have no recourse whatsoever afterwards. This bill would address that and hopefully then see our passage rates go way up.
And address some of the concerns you brought up early in our discussion about the growing, booming elderly population. Obviously would help all of us, but that's part and parcel with what you talked about earlier.
Most certainly.
How much does our immigration efforts to reduce the number of immigrants in the state, what impact is that having on having nurses aides?
As far as that issue, nurses aides, healthcare workers, not as much, because if you are in fact a non-registered citizen, an illegal alien, you would not be able to go ahead and go into the healthcare profession. There's also a fair amount of registration requirements associated. Even if you are a nurse from another country coming here, there is things that you need to pass. There are certifications you need to pass. I've known medical doctors from other countries that do not practice in the United States because of the strict requirements we have here. So I don't see the medical profession other than there are less patients being affected.
Might immigration bite Republicans a bit in the state of Florida this year? In Miami, they're touting Democratic mayor for the first time in a long time. Venezuela, even as we sit here, the dynamics of that are changing. We're not going to talk national policy, but you have a lot of Venezuelans in Miami, for instance, who are saying, on the one hand, the Trump administration thought things were so bad that they needed to go in and take Maduro out of power from Venezuela. And yet we sit here constantly worried that we're going to be deported. And the optics of that to a lot of people are confusing. How might that whole immigration debate play out? Carlos Cabello, former lawmaker, said it could bite Republicans this year in Florida.
I think it's you're talking about two issues that really have a large dividing line between them. Immigration on one side and the Venezuela actions on a completely different side, in my opinion. When you look at the immigration issues, I've heard from business owners, I've heard from folks that were utilizing individuals, and the flip side of that is all of those businesses were also going through the E-Verify system, and/or were saying that in fact their employees were had a Social Security number or had work permits. I think that there are some areas where there might have been a little bit too much zealousness, shall we say, to bring some people into the immigration review fold, where people had valid work permits and valid work papers. I think we saw that with a gentleman that was a manager here on Palm Beach as a restaurant manager. So I think that there may have been some zealousness that could be curbed associated with the immigration, but I don't overall see that as something that's going to bite Republicans long term. The Venezuela issue is something where we had a person that didn't even win his election. He had 30% of the votes in the last election before he used his military to shut down and declare himself president. So I think this is somebody who is an illegitimate leader of his country. And frankly, under the Biden administration, they increased the award for his capture and or arrest to $26 million. And here's a guy that all of a sudden we get out of there. We aren't changing a regime. We have no troops on the ground. And we're seeing a major reaction to this. I think this is something that long term is going to be a positive thing for the people of Venezuela. I know at least 4 gentlemen that have gone through leaving Venezuela, leaving so much behind. One gentleman works here in the United States and his family is still back there. He's a former member of the military down there. He's scared to death for his family because of what is happening back or what was happening. But he has such hope for the future. I mean, I called him and he was crying. He was just so happy that we had done something.
Final thoughts as you've got a campaign of yours on into 28, I believe, state senate.
Well, let me quickly ask something about that.
Sir.
This could make or break your campaign. Do you support removing the yellow tag from license plates.
Yes, and the decal tag. Brian's been scraping his off. That's why he's asking.
We will see about that one. Who knows? I mean, where that is, I think it's a major cost savings issue for the state of Florida. So I'll have to wait until I see that bill in front of me.
Yeah. If you see Brian along with signs on I-95, you'll know that's Brian.
Well, first of all, we have to get him on 95.
Yeah,
this
we
is
do
true.
have trouble. And
Yes,
then the decal issue. You'll
Right.
know it's Brian.
Yes.
Final top of mind Florida thoughts for you that we've missed or that you'd like to touch on?
Well, I think that the Florida legislature is tackling a wide variety of issues, whether it be looking at items such as a statewide anti-terrorism task force that we're looking at, to literally having the first of its kind legislation on pennies versus nickels. If you recall, now we no longer have pennies, so I'm actually a co-sponsor of a bill that deals with rounding to nickels if you're using cash.
All right.
So in fact, there's a variety of things that the Florida legislature deals with. I'm so surprised with the items that come up every single year. We have some very good domestic violence bills that are working their way through the process right now. We have, again, a variety of environmental bills that are working their way through the process. I suspect that we're probably going to do a kind of an 8-year look back as to what the environmental process has done, how much we've spent, in the order of $25 billion in looking at environmental restoration and actually conducting it. I think we've done a great job with it, but where are we right now? And do the projects that are on the books that it's an additional $25 billion, do we need to be doing all of these projects out there, or are there some ways we can shift focus on that? The South Florida South Florida Water Management District has a $120 million shortfall just for maintenance. And this is just for structures to make sure that your ankles aren't ankle deep in water.
Mm-hmm.
And these are things that are really pressing. So I think, again, love to talk more about some of these issues at another time.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, the legislature has a lot of work to do over the next 60 days. Hopefully just 60 days. We'll see what happens with our relationship with the governor. But we had our longest session
my nickel
ever.
says it's longer than 60.
Yes, I certainly hope not, but we'll see.
With this old political hand in Tallahassee.
Yes, it'll be my final session up there, but hoping that it won't be the longest session in history.
Well, your final, at least
final session in the House. Certainly looking forward to the potential to be able to get over to the Senate. Senator Harrell's done a great job up there for many a year, and it'll be a nice opportunity to be able to hopefully walk into that area there and or to be working with the Byron Donalds administration once he becomes governor.
To be continued, Representative Toby Overdorf, Republican from the Treasure Coast. We always appreciate you taking time and navigating traffic to be with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.